Hello, Just Jax here and welcome to my channel. Now with the UV resin today, I've had an idea that I've wanted to try since I got given these. I got given these really cool little bath ducks. But when you touch them, they light up. How cool is that? So I wanted to try and make a duck float in resin, but still have that light up option. And now I tested, if I put anything over the sensors, let me grab that ducky again. If I put anything over these two sensors here, and literally anything, even just something super thin, it won't register. So I had to get thinking. Now I mentioned it in one of my other videos. I think the one where I was experimenting with nail varnishing the coasters, where I was going to sacrifice a coaster and able to do this. And I thought, it's probably not going to be big enough. What have I got and what have I learned that will be big enough and that I can create something with? Well, when Marley, I mean, she still is a pup, bless her heart, but when she was a super little pup, and I first got her insurance sorted out, you got like a free pack would come eventually. And I chose a puppy pack because, you know, she was a puppy. And one of the things, I think it was a boredom buster pack, or it was meant to be, one that's for, she's a tough chewer. She's an extreme chewer. And this licky mat came with it, which they are really good for like little dinky pups and dogs that don't like to pull things apart. Well, Marley worked out this is really easy to pull apart. We had another one, so I didn't even bother giving her this one. Well, this is actually silicone, so that's well handy. So I was like, oh, I can use this. So I clipped a load of the bumps out. So I don't mind if it's a little dimpled on the very bottom, because you're not really going to see that. And then I cut a hole in it big enough to sit the duck in. So then I was like, well, I don't want it to spill out underneath. So using the packaging tape, which we know doesn't stick, that's going to be my little protection underneath. I've also taped right across the hole because it's ever so slightly, there's a couple of little gaps here or there. So I don't mind it falling in those because it isn't going to go anywhere and it isn't going to cover the sensors. And then I was thinking about how I can build a wall. It's like, well, I know it doesn't stick to Play-Doh, but you have to wash Play-Doh off. So the Play-Doh gave me flexibility, and then I covered it in Play-Doh, and then I covered it in Vaseline, very thin coating of Vaseline, so I knew it would come away nice and shiny. There might be a little bit of blue where it seeps under ever so slightly, but that's okay because there's going to be a little bit of tidying up work. So that's where we're at right now. And then I wanted to add a couple of little scene bits. So these are made out of cocktail sticks and silk clay. I'm going to resin those together there. Maybe the third one too, or I might stick one like over here somewhere. And then using an air freshener lid, it's the only thing that I could find green on the fly that I wanted to try. I've cut and rebent just by running my nail across them. Rebent them in slightly different ways, so we've got a little bit of greenery that's also going to be resin in place to begin with. Then my plan, after getting those in place, is to just put a very, very, very thin layer of resin all across the bottom. Very thin. Sprinkle a tiny bit of sand because I don't want to create a complete barrier. And then I'm going to do another layer of resin, and I might, because I do now have some alcohol inks. They were suggested by a fantastic subscriber who's given me loads of excellent advice. They might be better for what I try and do, though I'm not going to try and do that in this one, oddly enough, but I am going to give them a go because I want to play with them. The tiniest hint, ever so subtly blue, And then we're going to pop it out and see if it's actually worked. Because it won't matter if it hasn't worked. Because these are all just random bits. Nothing has been spent. These were all gifted, well, quite literally all gifted apart from the Vaseline and the packaging tape. But they don't matter because they come in abundance and they're cheap. So that being said, let's get started with trying our best to get these there first. And that's why I'm going to do a thin layer of clear resin on the bottom, because then you won't see a difference between these being in place and that thin layer being across the bottom. And it really has only got to be a super thin layer. So let's just try. Let's just try. So I'm going to pop just a little dot there, because it should, in theory, be enough just to hold them where I want them. And being super thin, it shouldn't take as long. Well, it'll still take the required curing time, but it won't. I've got to try and stop moving because I can see my fingers going wibble wobble, wibble wobble. Right, reeds in place. Well, I don't actually know what they're officially called. I'll have to check. I keep calling them reeds, but they're the planty bits that come out with the reeds. Now to try and get these in there as well. Luckily that'll rest up against the Vaseline. And this is going to be tricky to get more in than one at once. Okay, we've got all our little greenery in place. So let's be brave and thin layer everywhere. I'm going to use a cocktail stick to help spread it around. Okay, I've got my very thin layer. I have spread it around with a cocktail stick so it's gone everywhere and over those bits a tiny bit. Now I am just going to sprinkle a little sand, not a lot, just a little. Like that. So just a very, very little. And I've also got some Play-Doh pots because that is not going to go over that without touching bits we don't want it to touch. So I've got to raise it. So let's get that there, that there, and let that cure. Right, we've had a few blasts under there. We are cured. So what we're going to do now is create a thin layer of the blue, because I had a thought. I'm going to do a thin layer of the blue. These are my new alcohol inks. So we'll have a proper play with those one day. It's well cool. They come with these nice little spiked caps so you can like pop a hole where you're meant to. I just thought that was quite genius. So yeah, we're going to go for a thin layer again. Swirl in a little blue here or there with a cocktail stick. And then go for one final clear layer on top of that. So we're going to be doing 3 layers in total. And then we'll get to pop it out and see if it's actually worked. Okay, you can rest that there for a second actually. Now let's try, we're going to go with Forget-Me-Not blue. Does this cap? Yeah! Oh, that's so cool. Oh, and it does go everywhere. Right, I will wash that out before I think of using that for anything else. I'll leave that there for now. So we're just going to put a couple of drops. Oh, that looks beautiful. One more over there. That's it. Otherwise I will very easily overdo it. Let's see, I'm going to leave that there to clean in a second. And we're just going to bring this around a bit. That looks so cool. Right. Pop that away. So I'm going to let this cure again. Then we will do that final clear layer. And then fingers crossed this works. Fingers crossed. It looks so cool at the moment. Will it all come out? Will it hold itself? I'll be curious to see if this floats afterwards as well. Because we've got quite a wide area to work with. It might still float. It might still be bath worthy. Okay, final clear layer. We are cured. We are not sticky. So far so good. And I don't think we've seeped out the bottom, which is even better. Right, I think we're there. So I'm going to get rid of this, so I don't forget that that's got resin all over the end of it. Okay, fingers crossed this works. We're going for the final cure. And then the reveal. The moment of truth is upon us. Did this work? It is cured. It doesn't seem to be squishy. It hasn't seeped through. Will it come off? Let's... Oh. Potentially a little sticky on the underside, but that's all right. If it comes away, you can always flip it. We'll tidy it up in a moment. Let's try and get that to cure under there. It still works. It still lights up. This is good. Right, let's get my bag of gloves, which I should have put on before I started messing around with the dye. Yes, it will be okay there. Right. Let's let that cure. Alright. We're here. The final piece. Still works. Still lights up. Looks pretty cool. Fully cured. Now I will give it a better tidy up around the edges at a later date. This, I've just turned my phone off, wrong button. This is our little ducky. Now, it's not perfect because it's sort of an experiment at the same time, But it does look cool. It does look like a little organic body of water there with a little wibbly wavy edge. That's the underside. You can see where a bit of the tape is stuck. But that's because I did put the tape on that side, sticky side up, to hold the duck in place. So I thought that might happen. But that didn't matter because that was going to be on the duck. That wasn't going to be on the resin. Now, the next test. That colour has a really cool effect. This would look really good if I created a proper mould for it that didn't have all those dimples running around it. How cool. Little flashing ducky. Party duck. Now for the real test. Well, the next real test. The first real test was, could we do this with what we've learnt so far? Yes, we can. Now, I'm just going to go and get the body of water. Will it float? Or did we need to make it bigger? Let's find out. Will it float or will it sink? It sort of floats. Floats enough. It's not going to sink any further than that. Okay, yeah. We'll take that. We'll take that. I'll get my camera back on so you can see a little closer. Yeah, it does actually float. You can see it's just under the water, but it is still floating. That's pretty cool. It might be floating a little drunk because it's got other bits weighing it in different directions. I think if I would have balanced those little bits out a bit more. But it does float. That's pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to take all of that as a success. And I have a new bath toy. Well, I'm really pleased with that. It worked. It came out. It didn't stick. It tidied up nice. It'll tidy up even better when I give it a proper clean around the edges. Really smooth it off. All I need to think about in the future when approaching this again is to keep it balanced weight-wise. So I think if the duck was slightly further forward and there was a third reed collection over here, because it is sinking slightly that side, or even if it was just at the back, it would probably also float just fine. Same for if there was no extra bits and it was just a duck on a little body of water, it would probably float, and the duck was nice and centre. It would probably float and not be so sunk in on the one end. Yeah, I like that. I'm happy with it. It worked in more ways than one. And it still lights up. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and joining me on this little quest for, can we apply what we've learned so far to create something? Can we still have it work like it should in all respects? I hope you've enjoyed. Well, like if you like what you see, comment if you've got something to say, and subscribe if you really like what you see and you want to see more and know when it's coming. Thank you all again so much. Take care and see you in the next one.